Welcome to today's session on Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And today we are going to continue from the chapter number 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. And we have covered up to verses 19 so far. And let us begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Karti Vacharam Pamum Langayate Kirim Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Verse 20. Prakritam Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaramscha Guramschaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Translation. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Verse 21. Karya karan karatritve hetu prakriti ruchyate purushah sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Verse 22. Purushah prakritistho hi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasdyo nijanamasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Verse 23. Upadrishta numanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwarah parmatmeti chapyukto dehisman smin purushah parah. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the Supersoul. Verse 24. Ya evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunah sa sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyo bhijayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning the material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of material nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Verse 25. Dhyane natmani pashyanti kechidatmanam atmana anya sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some perceive the Supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Verse 26. Anyatveva majanantah shrutvanyebhye upasate tepi chatitaranteva mrityum shruti parayanaha. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So we are going to begin from the verse 20 today, and all the 6 questions which Arjun asked in the beginning of these chapters have been addressed by Lord Krishna. And from verse number 20 to 26, it's all about Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is the material nature, and Purusha is the Lord himself. So the answers about the first and the second question which Arjun asked in the beginning, they will be answered now in these verses. So the 3 modes of the material nature, the goodness, the passion, and the ignorance, they are just like the 3 primary colors. And they create all of their colors. Similarly, the 3 modes of material nature, they create all the sense objects, and they create all the illusions in this world for all of us. So the material nature and the living entities have to be understood as beginningless, Bhagavan says in this verse, and the transformations and the modes of matter are the products of the material nature. So the individual soul and it is embodied, as we know, it is encased in a body. All of us have got a body and our souls are encased in that. Our soul and the activities of the body are enjoyed by who? We think they are enjoyed by us, but no, it's not by us. It's actually being enjoyed by that soul is the Purusha or the living entity in this case. But Adi Purush, as we know, is Bhagwan. So whatever Krishna is telling us in this chapter will make us understand the body, which is the field of the activities, knower of the body, which is both the soul and the super soul. The body is the field of activity. It is combined of different material nature. We know the gross elements, the earth, water, fire, ether, and air. And so one Purusha is the soul, which is the living entity, and the other one is super soul. Both are the manifestations of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entities, are in the category of the energy of the Lord, and the super soul is in the category of personal expansion of the Lord. It is a localized personal expansion of the Lord which is present in each and every living entity, whether it's an ant or it's an elephant or a gorilla. So the size doesn't matter. The size of the soul is same in all of the entities, and of course the super soul as well. The soul, eternal. So they always exist, they always have existed, and they always will carry on existing. And in verse 21, Bhagwan is telling us that the nature is the cause of all material causes and effects, and living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So in the various species of life, living entities are there in this material world due to the material nature. With the different combinations of the material energy, different species are there, and with the modes of nature, when they interact with them, once coming into this world, they go through different sufferings and enjoyments according to their senses, and so the original state of the soul is of happiness, of enjoyment permanently. But in the material, coming to the material nature, living in the material nature, suffering has also got to be endured simultaneously. So the material nature is the provider of the body and the instrument senses. So once Prabhupada has given us the example that if a living entity, if a jiva, if a soul is put into the body of a particular animal, it starts behaving straight away according to that species, and so on. So according to the body, the behavior is derived. It's enacted. In the Mandukya Upanishad 3.1.1, it's stated Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhayaha. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul in all circumstances, is present as the super soul or the Paramatma. In verse 22, Bhagavan says that the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. Due to his association with that material nature, he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Now, it is very important to understand that, and we know very well by now, that the soul transmigrates from one body to another. It was explained very nicely in the second chapter by Bhagavan to all of us. Now, only the dress is changed. The soul remains the same. It's eternal. It's happy. It's full of knowledge, full of bliss. Now, it is due to the desire of the soul in any life or in all the culmination of the past life's desires, that kind of body is given. And it goes on until the soul is woken up from its dormant stage. That covering is taken off from the soul. What is the real purpose of the soul? Until that is awakened, these rounds of samsara, they carry on happening one after the another continuously. Now, Arjun, as we know, is hearing from Lord, and he's getting all the spiritual happiness, and he's becoming more and more learned as well. It's not that he wasn't learned. He is also some kind of expansion of Lord, as we know. And he was the son of Indra, Arjun. So according to the association of the spiritual knowledge with the of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to that in proportion we enjoy the eternal blissful life. In verse 23, so we are all, these material senses are products of the modes of the happiness and distress what we experience are the products of the modes of material nature in interaction with our senses. In verse 23, Bhagavan says that in this body is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, as we know, that Super Soul or the Paramatma, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is also known as the Super Soul. So this is very nice verse 23 from chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. So Bhagwan as Super Soul never leaves the individual. It's always there with the individual. It is the representation of the Supreme Lord with all of us. He is Para. Para is the transcendental, and Atma is the soul. So Lord is Paramatma, not the Atma. That aspect is there within all of us, who is sitting by our souls just like two birds on a tree. The individual is the Bhukta or the sustained, and Lord is the Bhokta or the maintainer. Now this is very important. You should remember that our souls are the Bhukta or the sustained, whereas Lord is the Bhokta or the maintainer. And Lord is always there as our friend in all types of living entities. And eternally He's there. And God is always saying to us that just give it up and turn your faith toward me, then you will be happy. So as long as we are lost in our independence and our own personal agendas and our own enjoyment, and we are not thinking of offering the service to the Lord, until then the feeling of the bliss is not going to be observed by us within ourselves. In verse 24, Bhagavan says, one who understands this philosophy concerning the material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So, material nature, super soul, individual, and their interrelation, Prabhupada is telling us in the purport, makes one eligible to get liberated and to start enjoying the spiritual atmosphere without having to turn back into this world for birth, old age, disease, death, and so on. So we have to awaken that purpose within us, all of us, by understanding Bhagavad Gita as explained by the Supreme Personality of God Himself. In verse 25, Bhagavan is saying how to come out of the entanglement of the matter. Bhagavan says that some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. So Bhagavan tells us there are two classes of men, one who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics, and beyond the sense of spiritual understanding, and the others who are faithful in their understanding of the spiritual life. They are called the introspective devotees who look within, like the philosophers and workers who have renounced the fruitive results and who have realized that there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are all the servitors or the servants of the Lord. And they understand the Bhagavan is there within themselves as Paramatma, and they have cultivated the knowledge by hearing and reading the Shastras. And they've understood all the 24 elements. 25th element is the individual soul, as was explained earlier on in the verses, and they understand that the 26th and the most important element is Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in verse 26, there is another method given to us to come out of the entanglement. Lord says in verse 26, there are those, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about Him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So this particular verse, verse 26, Prabhupada is telling us, is particularly important or more applicable to the modern society, where there's actually complete lack of spiritual knowledge. All the knowledge is given is usually about how to sustain in the material life, how to make money. So it's all about satisfying your body and nothing about your soul. So this verse is saying that the persons who begin to worship the Lord upon hearing about Him from others, they will transcend the path of birth and death, especially Lord Chaitanya's movement, by hearing the vibrations of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we should all take the advantage of this Kali Yuga, that despite all its bad qualities, all the hypocrisy and the quarrels in this Yuga, there is one thing which is been given to us to the people of this yuga, which is this Mahamantra, which is going to deliver us. That is the only thing, because Lord resides in His holy name as well. So it is very important for us to hear from the self-realized souls and try to follow them properly. We can clear our doubts from them. We don't have to just blindly follow them. You have to ask the questions, get your doubts removed, and this way we will be able to serve the Lord, begin our devotional service in whichever situation we are situated in this life, and then eventually make our way back to the Godhead. Thanks for joining. Next time we'll continue from verse 27, and hopefully we will finish this chapter as well. Thank you for joining. I wish you all a very happy week ahead, and please do take very good care of yourselves, as more lockdowns have come into the force, and it's festive period. It's fine. It's best now to stay wherever you are, stay put, and chant the Lord's names, read about Lord, hear about Lord, try to have some association however you can within your homes, and try to serve the Lord very nicely, and just pray that for each other, and keep safe, and just hope that this situation will also change to normal situation very soon. Hari Om Tat Sat and Hare Krishna.